Okay, thank you for inviting me today. Very happy to be here. As you probably know a little bit about Accenture, it's a $43 billion revenue company. We've got about 500,000 of people in the world, including in Israel, of course, where we've got a thriving activity and a lab, technology lab based in Herzliya. As you can hear, I'm not from Israel myself. In case you wonder, I French and Swiss and living in New York City. So I hope you can cope with my strange accent and still understand me. What I wanted to share with you today is just a very quick snapshot about the topic of AI that we've been researching for years. In my job of being director of our research activities, we undertake research on topics that are of interest to our clients, predominantly C-level executives, predominantly in the 2,000 largest organizations of the world. And AI has been a topic of interest for some years, and so we did initially some macro modeling to estimate the potential value that could be created with AI. In a nutshell, our results was that by 2035, the value that could be created could be in the range of $15 trillion in the world for all the major countries that we studied. And give and take, that means that by 2035, the economic growth of these countries could be doubled. So you can see that in terms of potential value, that is absolutely enormous. Now, the question is, of course, when you deal with companies every day, it's about the speed and the depth at which that value is created. And that was the topic of a research that we just published a couple of months ago, where we interviewed 1,500 C-level executives around the world, 12 countries, 16 industries, about what they actually do in AI these days. And the first interesting results that was surprising to us was the extent of awareness, interest, and engagement of these C-level executives. And I project here some data. The one I wanted to highlight is that you can see that 84% of interviewees mentioned that they want to leverage AI. They must leverage AI to achieve their economic growth objectives. So that's a very high number, of course, higher than we expected initially. And second, we're speaking here about growth. So AI and previously RPA automation was a lot, of course, focused on cost optimization. The point of interest here as well is that it is about growth. The point here in terms of the way that they're going to achieve it is the way that it can be confirmed or not by other data. And we're pleased when we looked at data published by IDC, one of the most famous companies in the IT market sizing area, that they estimated that the spend by large companies is currently growing exponentially. They estimated that the global spend on AI was in the area of $40 billion last year, 40, and they expected to reach $100 billion by 2023. That's more or less a CAGR, an annual growth rate of 28%. So you can see that it's growing now exponentially. So not only C-level executives at these large companies express their interest, they actually put money on it. And it's broad-based, many industries, especially the ones that we're going to look at in a minute. If you think about banking, if you think about retail and consumer goods, if you think about healthcare, if you think about manufacturing, if you think about mobility, these are really the industries which are leading in terms of spend. Does that mean that the companies are creating value at this point in time with all the money that they invest in AI? And here, the answer is actually not that much. And that's something that we have seen before in the space of emerging technologies. We call that trap value. And trap value is a moment in time where what is feasible, what is possible with the new technologies is growing exponentially, And at the same time, what is actually done, what is absorbed by company in their business processes is not going at the same rate. And suddenly you can see that gap is increasing, and that's what we call trap value. And that's exactly where we are in many companies at this point in time. And just briefly, I will not go into all the details, but what you can see here is what is happening in between 4 out of 5 companies, which are more or less at the proof of concept stage and struggle to go beyond the proof of concept stage. And the companies, the minority of companies, who actually achieve to go further than that. We call that strategic scaling. That's a step 2 that you can see here, or even better, industrialized for growth, where that AI becomes really a competitive advantage, and we can see the impact in terms of financial results and results for stakeholders. So what do they do differently? It's a matter of the CEO focus. It's a matter of articulating the technology value and the business value. It's a matter of reconfiguring the business processes in all these large companies. And it's a matter about the employee motivation, engagement, and mobilization eventually. And that's the point where I wanted to conclude and to stop for now. We just published yesterday our annual technology vision. That technology vision is on the Accenture website. You can download it. It's for free. As you know, consultants do not do everything for free, but this one is for free. So I really engage you to download it and to read it. And there is a whole chapter dedicated to AI that we called AI and Me, because we think that one of the challenges that C-level executives face now, but that as well the AI providers face, is to articulate the value that with these new AI solutions, employees are going to be able to create with AI, and the way they're going to be augmented, as we said, the way that they can be upskilled on the way. And that is, in our view, the way that really the speed and the depth of implementation of AI can be accelerated in large companies. So I stop here in the interest of time, but these are just the highlights I wanted to share with you this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing those insights. I found very interesting, because it's something I've heard before, sort of the statistics regarding how challenging it is to actually implement an AI business plan or technology. And it's truly remarkable when you think about some of the speakers that'll be on stage momentarily. There are so many challenges that they've overcome, right? And I was wondering if you could give us some of those challenges, name some of the major barriers to implementing an AI concept or technology, no matter the size of the company.
No, it's in our view, a very interesting point in the sense that our objective is to help our clients to transform themselves and to create value for their stakeholders. And quite often, the main issue is a budget issue. It's a dollar issue. And what we are facing in this case with AI is that in most cases, not always, of course, but in most cases, it's not even a dollar issue. It's a matter about the way to redefine business processes to implement AI at the core of it. And we can see that in the banking sector, we can see that in the retail sector, we can see that in the manufacturing industry, where to a large extent there is a way of implementing new technologies to optimize processes, which has been done for many years, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. If you look at the cost optimization side of it, that's something that most C-level executives can do, know how to do. When you go into more looking at the growth potential, that's where it gets a lot trickier and more challenging.
Gotcha. Well, for an example of a company that successfully implemented AI, Broadman can step onto the stage and give a brief presentation about their work. This is, as I said, a company involved in ADAS and mobility, and it's a fascinating field, so I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you very much. We have here a few slides to show you how in Broadman 17 we are not only using AI, but we are also inventing AI and deep learning algorithms in order to bring these solutions to the mass market. These features that are available today for the premium market, we are trying to take them to the mass market. So ADAS, automated driving, or features known as adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency brake, self-parking vehicles, all of them became very important for the automakers as a source of revenue, also as a differentiator between car models. And these features are not too hard to sell. The only challenge with these highly compute-intensive algorithms is how to implement it. These algorithms usually require processors that are very expensive, requires a lot of power, create a lot of heat, and this is something that we are trying to help. Again, many drivers for these markets. NCAP are publishing new standards every year. There are regulations in different countries, and drivers like these features that promote safety and comfort, and it's all about how much it costs to implement it and how much people are willing to pay for that. In Broadman, we like to think that we can accelerate. We invented new deep learning and AI algorithms that can reuse calculations and therefore requires less processing power. Over here, you can see some of the trends that the industry is currently having. It's edge devices. Cameras are being integrated at the edge of different subsystems in the vehicle. There is an AI inside this 25mm box rear camera to detect pedestrian and to do automatic emergency brake. There are cameras inside the headlamp, inside the mirrors, as well as the compute power. So everything is at the edge. No need to have a high-speed video stream across the vehicle to a centralized unit. Processing software only. In many cases, these units, they have processing power already, and the fact that we can do our solution is software only is a big advantage for them. Solutions that currently becoming more frequently available are around the forward-facing camera, the surround cameras, the blind spot. Our first product is already in the market. It was NCAP certified and being sold. There are several POCs, and there are also some design wins, and we are going to see serial production in 2021. Thank you.
I was fortunate enough to take a demo ride yesterday and see some of these systems in action, and it was incredible to me. I think a statistic I heard during that ride was, you've collected data over the course of something like over 1 million miles. It's a lot of data that's required to train these models, and I'm sure it's a continuous process. Can you talk a little bit about sort of like the nitty-gritty of the underlying technology behind the products that you're talking with tier ones about and other undisclosed customers?
Yeah, so in AI, frequently you will hear us saying that the algorithms are just 50% of the work, and the other 50% is the data. So collecting vast amount of data, non-naive data from all sorts of weather conditions, other conditions on the road is very important. Collecting continuously data, getting data from our customers is the 50% that is perfecting the solution all the time. The performance, the accuracy is something which is not negotiable at the automotive industry. So they need to get the 100% accuracy that they must have while we cannot, or while using low power commodity processors, and this is where we have the advantage.
Yeah, like you said, your system uses off-the-shelf components, hardware, and most of the innovation, correct me if I'm wrong, is on the software side, as you mentioned during the presentation. So the ADAS market, though, is very competitive, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people recognize the name Mobileye, and you have You have formidable direct and indirect rivals. So I would like to hear, how you think you can tackle that problem. How you're really differentiating, considering all the other potential companies that might be competing against you, whether they're developing their own hardware or kind of taking your approach, strictly software on top of existing hardware.
Exactly. Mobileye is the gold standard of the industry. They created a hardware-software solution, but in many cases, the manufacturers, they have already compute power in the vehicle. So they are looking to get just the processing power. Because in the digital mirrors, you already have a compute power. In the rear-facing camera, there is already compute power. They don't want to add another chip. They want the software. Over there, they start to see the vehicle as a software platform. They have much compute power inside. And the fact that we can create a software for them, software that can be adjusted to their needs so they can differentiate and create the vehicle or these advanced features in the way that they believe it should be, is a big advantage for them.
Definitely. I don't think there's an easy way to do the segue. But another company that's investing in a software or cloud-based AI solution is Strategies Analytics. So I would like to welcome them to the stage to talk a little bit about the consumer side of AI and machine learning and how it might be valuable to companies looking. Excuse me. It seems we have a brief, we have a technical issue here. But all right, considering that those are not your slides, I think we'll invite TechSee onto the stage instead. Or yeah, all right. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to hear from TechSee, which, as I mentioned at the top of the panel, is involved in basically making it easier for customers to troubleshoot smart home devices, and also customer service agents to help those customers that might be having issues with their devices to figure out how to get to the bottom of them.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hagai Ben-Avi, and I'm a senior product manager working for TechSee. I apologize for the way I sound this morning. I lost my voice a little bit. I'll try to speak as clearly as possible. Okay. AI is a very broad term. I would like to primarily focus today on computer vision in the area of AI. So let's go shopping. On last Black Friday, I bought this device. What you see here is a Nest Smart Thermostat. It's a device which is meant to make our lives a lot easier, right? If the house is too cold, it will make it warm. It will just understand what is the temperature, it will sense it, and it will warm the house and turn on the heating. At least I thought my life would be easier until I actually opened the box and I saw this. Multiple wiring options telling me what to do, and I'm trying to understand which one actually fits my own house. So I did what every other person would do. I went online. I searched for YouTube videos, and I came across about 200 different videos. None of them really matched what I had to do. I tried to speak with Alexa, of Amazon, of course, and explain Alexa what I'm seeing, but Alexa can't see, so she couldn't really understand me. And it was quite a frustrating process. And this frustrating issue is not only my only pain point, it's actually a massive pain point in the market. According to a recent survey done by Accenture, about 68%, that's 2/3 of customers, were having initial struggles with setting their device or troubleshooting it, will end up returning a perfectly working device back to the store. In the US market alone, we are talking about $20 billion of devices being returned to the store when they are in perfect working condition because the user was unable to handle the manual. How do companies handle this issue today? Well, there are two ways to handle it. The first one, you can send a technician over. But for a thermostat, it costs $80. Sending a technician that costs $150 doesn't make sense. The other one, you can call the support center, right? But then you are paying a $15 call, the brand is paying, and again, this is not profitable. Now think about the following solution. Imagine that you would Simply point your smartphone camera. And the smartphone camera will not only see, it can also understand with computer vision, AI. It doesn't only recognize that this is a smart thermostat, but it detects what kind of configuration your house requires because it can see. It can actually replace you. You don't need to read the manual anymore. It can guide you, correct you, understand you, and let you know that you are on the right track to installing it, just like a virtual technician looking over your shoulder. Our mission at TechSee, eventually with computer vision AI and augmented reality on any smartphone camera, is to kill the existing user manual that we all know and came to hate. And this is how the future of consumer engagements with smart devices should look like, ultimately. So when I say computer vision, what am I referring to? Computer vision is essentially the ability of machines to see. But what we do at TechSee with our patented technology is not only seeing, but also understanding and interpreting different statuses in which the device can be. If there are error messages, if the knob is attached to the wrong place, we can understand LEDs, wall sockets, cables. We can read screens. We can do cross-device interpretation and understand what's going on and guide the customer with augmented reality, telling him what to do, replacing any human agent that would have to guide him through or a physical technician that would arrive to the house. Let me show you, sorry. Okay. Let me show you how it looks like. All you need to do is just to point your camera. We recognize the device, we understand its status directly, what is plugged, what is not plugged. No application is required, by the way, and we guide the user with augmented reality. This solution is already used today by leading brands of the world, such as Hitachi, Vodafone, Espresso, and others. They're all already piloting this technology and using it with real customers, and they witness a massive reduction in technician dispatches and call volumes. This is how we truly apply computer vision AI to revolutionize this industry. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a fascinating solution to a problem that all of us have had, I think. Figuring out how to set up whatever it might be. I mean, the smart home industry, there are myriad standards to deal with. Who wants to read a manual anymore? Or, like you mentioned, look up countless YouTube videos. And it's interesting that both of you are applying computer vision to solve, challenges that entire industries face, and to speak to this panel, transforming those industries. In the interest of time, I think we're going to move ahead at a faster clip than I'd like. I think we could talk up here all day, but I will bring up strategy analytics back to the stage. I think we have the right slides this time, so.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Omer Kehat. I'm from Signals Analytics, and I'll talk today a little bit about how we're using AI to transform market research. So if you look at market research today and what most manufacturers are doing, they're usually going to go in one of these two different dimensions. They either want very, very high level of insights and high domain expertise. It will be at the cost of real slow and slow time to market. Or they can go the way of automation and scale, which will usually be through using online databases that are available and are more generic, not necessarily geared to their specific use case and domains. At Signals, we use AI to get the best of both worlds and really provide you both the high insight level relevant to your domain, but at the high speed and scale of automation. If you consider the amount of data generated for a category within a month, it's enormous. And one of the challenges is how do you get this data right and how do you find the relevant sources and really make it all relevant to the category. This is where initially we use our AI and machine learning to not only discover meaningful sources, but also bringing all of this disparate data and clean it up and create something that's relevant and contextual to your specific category. Once we have a very found and solid data foundation, the next is analyzing it. And using NLP, we're able to really connect different data sources that are actually talking about the same thing and create one holistic view. So consider technical patents that are talking about a specific new ingredient that's being introduced into the market. Or consider a market already in launch, and now you have a lot of customer reviews talking about that product, highlighting what it's good for, what it's bad for. There's specific sentiment about it. Or consider someone on Instagram, a KOL, that's just talking about a new product or something that's hot and trending, and many people are listening into that and tapping into that. So we make all those connections for you, and therefore allow you to see what's trending, what's surfacing, what's up next, and also even going through predictive models and showing you what's going to be happening next. And imagine taking all this data, not just at a product level, but at a category level, a brand level, helping you see emerging brands, helping you understand what the competition is doing and what it's focusing on. We're actually integrating into the entire product lifecycle process, from ideation, showing you what's trending and where to innovate, from a launch and post-launch, helping you message it correctly, understand how to market, understand what lingo to use and what consumers are looking for, and then even helping you understand if it's time to move on. If this product no longer has a market and there are new trends that are surfacing and you want to really move on for something else. This is all a SaaS-based platform. Behind the scenes, all of our big data engines are doing the work for you. And at the end of the day, the decision is yours. But we're really helping you get, I would say, 80–90% of the way in a much faster way. It's continuous. Our data platform is always collecting data. So when you enter the platform today and tomorrow and in a few weeks' time, you'll see the dynamics. You'll see how the category has evolved and changed and what it means for you right now. It's not just a one-time report that you get from an agency that's telling you what was relevant half a year ago. It's telling you what's relevant and happening right now. And with our predictive models, what's going to happen in a few months or a year down the line. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a fascinating application of AI because it's just incredible to think that you can predict the performance of whatever it might be, a product, a service, that far in advance. And we were speaking before this panel, had a brief phone conversation, and you were telling me the sources of the data that you draw on to make these predictions are largely unstructured, and they can be from anywhere. I mean, could you maybe talk about where this data is coming from in some cases?
Sure. So a lot of the unstructured data is coming from social media, for example, platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. A lot of it is coming from e-commerce sites or like e-blogs, forums, and so on. People are actually talking. People are talking about what matters to them, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. You can really tap into their sentiment about a specific concept or a specific brand or whatever. And when you do it right and you have a high accuracy, then afterwards the decision-making process is a lot easier. It's a challenge we have, making sure that our customers are gaining the confidence in the platform. But we've really hit above industry standards in all of our testing in terms of our ability to make precise prediction.
Absolutely, yeah. Just making that data useful to your various models is probably a challenge. Natural language processing, I'm sure, is something that you've invested heavily in on the development side. Another company that's drawing on a lot of different sources to make predictions is MedAware in the healthcare space. So I'd love to invite them to the stage and hear a bit more about what they're doing.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Gidi Stein. I'm co-founder and CEO of MedAware. Really, the challenge that we're trying to face is to connect between the most unexpected things. One is one of the more conservative professions in the world, which is medicine, and the most advanced artificial intelligence. And how does that work? Basically, the art of medicine didn't change much for the last, 300 years. It's a basic concept of a physician, the patient sitting in an intimate room, discussing the most deepest secrets and problems, and doing some evaluation tests, and trying to get to a conclusion to what is actually the problem and how that problem can be fixed. Now, that didn't change. Technology around it, the medications, the diagnostics, all that changed, but that intimate encounter basically did not change much in the last years. And our challenge was to really try to change that. And in order to change that, we need to understand how that works. What happens in that flow of discussion with the patient and the continuum of care. So basically, it all starts with the diagnosis. Having a discussion, hearing the patient's problems, understanding them, and maybe preparing some tests, and achieving a diagnosis. It could be any kind of illness. The second thing is designing a treatment plan. Then executing that treatment plan and monitoring that patient throughout the duration of treatment to make sure that he's well, he's not harmed, he's actually responding to the medications or treatment, and he's not harmed by the medication, or no adverse drug events or contraindications, and what have you. And this is a continuous process that goes out through life. But there are things that can go wrong in the process. So patients, most of them are diagnosed okay, but some of them may be underdiagnosed or wrongly diagnosed. When reaching a decision about treatment, not all of the patients are treated right. Some of them are not treated at all for their illnesses. Some of them are mistreated, and some of the treatments can actually be harmful. And the last part is also monitoring the patients to make sure that the medications or the treatments that they're getting won't harm them. It can be adverse drug events or contraindications or any change that might put those patients at risk. And each of those points, in 99% of the cases, everything goes okay. But in 1%, even less than that, something goes wrong. And this is exactly the place where we think that smart algorithms, AI, machine learning, or whatever you want to call them, can be there to pick up and identify those potentially catastrophic errors and provide better care ultimately to the patients. And maybe I'll give an example of something that we actually tested for this talk. So we analyzed about 200,000 patients and picked out of them patients with one of the more common cardiac diagnosis, which is atrial fibrillation, a dysrhythmia. And we found that for every patient that was identified correctly with that arrhythmia, we found another one who was not diagnosed or had enough clues to necessitate more tests to make sure that he's not, doesn't have that arrhythmia. And the cause of untreated arrhythmia may cause a CVA, stroke, or something really catastrophic. That means that 50% of the patients are not even diagnosed as they should be. Now, even those that were diagnosed, when looking at the treatment, we found that only 20% of them were treated right. Another 40% was not treated at all, and the rest were treated according to guidelines from the 1800s, or mistreated at all. And then even after treatment was initiated, rightfully, there were so many things that happened later that could cause the patient harm. Bleeding, complete contraindications, adverse drug events, connections between drugs, things that happened along the way that many of them were caught by the physicians, but up to about 50% or more of them were completely missed or later on were diagnosed, but then obviously harm was done. So the idea really in applying machine learning into that intimate encounter between the patient and his physician is not really to replace the physician. I don't think we will get there in the next few years. We can't replace empathy, we can't replace hand-holding, we can't replace human logic. But what we can do is apply those smart spell checkers, those safety nets, just to ensure that patients are not harmed. Thank you.
Medicine, it seems like, is benefiting more and more from all different types of AI and machine learning. Computer vision is another area, we discussed on the phone briefly before the talk. Google and others have been, publishing incredible research about how computer vision and natural language processing, for that matter, can be used to improve patient outcomes. In some cases, outperform trained clinicians. So the case study you brought up, that you prepared for this talk is like a particularly stark example, I guess, of like what can go wrong when humans don't take advantage of these technologies. I mean, it's often, I think, incorrectly stated that AI is taking human jobs, right? And would you say, your company and others, MedAware and others, are sort of an example of how like AI is augmenting the work done by humans rather than replacing them outright?
Yes, I mean, there are professions that will probably be obsolete in a few years. I don't believe medicine is one of them. And I think we need to really focus on understanding what are the gaps and what is the best technology that can bridge that gap. So AI is not a solution for everything. It's very complex. It should be only the last resort after you really exploited much simpler methodologies. But sometimes it is exactly the right medicine for the right problem. And being that smart spell checker, catching these rare catastrophic events, which are completely unpredictable in most cases, is exactly where AI comes in. Very similar to credit card fraud or cybersecurity. It's basically the same theme, but only applied in different problems. And the challenges in medicine is that, as opposed to some of the companies that are presented here today, the data is so corrupted. It is lacking, highly regulated, and almost completely, you have no ability to compare patients from China, Israel, or even one from Epic and one from Cerner, two different technologies in the same continent. So this puts up new levels of barriers that we're facing, but happily we're in a good space.
That's good to hear. I know we are over time, but we do have one more presenter from CorrActions, and this is a company that is applying AI to the interesting problem of interpreting signals, brain signals, and making those useful, turning them into inputs, for example, that move a computer cursor, what have you. So without further ado.
Control the,
it should be right there.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Eldad Hochman. I'm a neuroscientist, and I'm the... sorry? What about the microphone? Oh, all right. Better now? Cool. So my name is Eldad Hochman. I'm a neuroscientist, and I'm a co-founder and chief science officer of CorrActions. Let me begin with a story. About 3 weeks ago, I was going back home from work. I was driving on the most left lane of a 4-lane descending highway. Since this is my regular way home, I was kind of driving on an automatic pilot mode. Suddenly, my navigation system, Waze, ordered me to turn right. Now, turning right would be a terrible, very dangerous decision. Nevertheless, I took it. Now, just before I took that stupid, very stupid decision, a sound at the back of my head yelled at me, "You shouldn't do it, you idiot. That might get you killed." However, I did not listen to that voice because whenever there's conflict between a person's conscious mind, conscious brain, and unconscious brain, the conscious brain would always win. I'm here, I'm safe. About a week ago, I saw a different driver doing the same thing, and this guy almost got hit by a car coming from, by a truck coming from the right, okay? That truck missed the guy by a fraction of a second, and I think it scratched the backside of the guy's car because I saw the car twisting a little bit. Now, imagine you'd have a technology in your car that constantly monitors these unconscious signals coming from the brain, and whenever your unconscious brain tells you not to do something, detects an upcoming error, that technology would alert immediately. CorrActions developed such technology. CorrActions AI algorithms constantly monitors unconscious brain signals without a need to record anything, directly from the brain. There is no need to mount electrodes on top of the skull. CorrActions AI algorithms decode brain signals from human motion, from human touch. As long as the human body comes in touch with an electronic device, we can tell what happens inside your brain. So, for example, in a car, CorrActions solution, which is a software-only solution, uses sensors already embedded in the car, in the steering wheel, the pedals, the driver's seat, and if your smartphone is in your pocket, we can use signals coming from your smartphone because it can sense your body. CorrActions algorithm would alert just in time, and studies show that whenever there's an external alert, you would listen to it. You won't, I wouldn't turn right, which I shouldn't have. So what are the usages of such technologies? So in a car, it's quite obvious. Some other usages are, for example, the car industry is highly interested in fatigue management. Now, nobody really cares about fatigue. People care about what fatigue can do to your decision-making system, what fatigue can do to your ability to detect errors just in time and correct the error just in time. CorrActions algorithm can tell whenever your decision-making system, whenever your ability to detect your errors deteriorates, whenever it takes you longer than usual to correct your errors. CorrActions algorithm doesn't care whether this is because you're drunk, you're absent-minded, you're on drugs, or you're not a very good driver. Regardless, if something is going on, we would let you know. Also, we can tell whether with time, with age, with deterioration of the driver's physical condition, there is a deterioration of the driver's decision-making system. Some other applications. Since we can tell whenever the brain error detection system works in real time, we can use that system to enhance skill learning. Whenever a skill is learned in a simulator or with the aid of a computerized device, we can increase skill learning by 70%. We run studies showing that. Here's the thing. Usually, skill learning, the classic way to teach someone to do something is simply to ask the guy to repeat a certain movement 1,000 times. Nobody addresses the other aspect of skill learning, the ability to detect errors, to detect bad decisions before these happen, and correct these errors. Our technology targets a person's decision-making system, targets a person's error detection system, and we exert manipulation on the activation of that system, and by that, we reinforce the activation of that system, and we increase learning, we expedite learning. Just one example, it costs about $10 million to train a pilot, okay? We can reduce the price of a pilot training by half, so it would cost only $5 million, which is a lot of money, okay? That's it, I guess. Just detected an error. There's no seat for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't seem there's enough chairs here, so you can have mine.
Too late.
Well, we are definitely over time, but I hope that it was a good illustration of how AI is transforming several different industries. I wish we could talk more about CorrActions, especially because that's a fascinating space. I mean, given Facebook's recent purchase of Control Labs and what Neuralink is doing, but I want to thank all of our panelists for their wonderful presentations. It was very enlightening. I learned a lot. And have a good rest of your summit, folks. Thank you for attending.